I'm Jim Gary, and welcome to Batilipi's Workshop. As many of you know, I've been restoring a 25-year-old Class A motorhome. It's built on a year 2000 Workhorse P32 chassis, and in previous videos I've replaced the rear brakes and most of the front and rear suspension parts. Today's video shows how I installed the new front disc brake calipers, but disaster nearly struck with a bolt that broke off, but I managed to extract the broken bolt and had a replacement, so all was well. As always, I welcome any comments or suggestions from you. And remember, I am a biologist, not a mechanic. I'm showing you what I did, not what you should do. So please consult a professional mechanic prior to any work you do. And if you're interested, there are links to my other motorhome restoration videos in the description below. So please like and subscribe. Now, let's get on with the video. So the goal right now is to get the new caliper installed. And I've got some parts. I've got the new brake pads. I've got some brake grease. And I've got the old parts clamp and the spring that goes on it. And it's got the nut that holds it in. So I've got to get these all cleaned up. And I'll do that off camera. And let's take a look at the brake pads. So here's the set. These are centric parts, 300.05430. So there's two pairs here. In the box that the brake pads came in, I found these parts here, and they're a little bit different. They're replacements, obviously, for these. So this is my original screw that holds the rotor onto the chassis. And it came with two more. One has Loctite on it, one doesn't. And they're a little bit different, but I think they would work. But I'm going to use the original one. Came with a plug, I guess, to plug the, put over the bleeding nipple or something. And then it came with these, and these are nice. They're cold galvanized, or they're hot dip galvanized. And they're essentially the same as these, but they're a little bit different, so I'm going to use the original one. And it came with two different kinds of springs. I have no idea why. They're different. And these were just the front set, so I don't know why. But here's my original one. And notice it's bent this way with the arm sticking up. And this one is similar. And then it came with one that's bent the other way. So the arms, instead of going up here, they're going down. So I'm going to put those aside. So I'm not going to use these. I don't need that. I don't need these springs. These I'm not going to use. And then I found these little springs. And I had a heck of a time figuring out where they go. I think they're called anti-rattle springs or spring clips, something like that. But luckily I had saved one of the old disc pads, and here's that piece. It's just clipped onto the pad. And these look like they would go on similarly. And I think all they do is prevent it from rattling. So this one goes on, will go on here. And then after I put it in, as I'm putting it in, then this set will go on, and that clips in. So we'll get to those later. So right now I'm going to go clean these up. So I've got these all cleaned up. So this is the clamp you have to drive in, and the spring goes on like that, and then this screw will screw it in to hold it in place once it's driven in, and the whole area has to be greased. And that's what this grease is for. So one other thing is these calipers here, like the original that I took out, have a single piston in them. Some of the other P32s have double piston calipers, but mine had these single piston calipers. And these, I believe, are made by Bendix, whereas the original ones I had were made by Bosch, but they were the exact same part. And this is the one for the right side. You can see by the R here. I only need to compress the piston in about 1/8 of an inch, it looked like. So I got it compressed pretty well. I used a C-clamp in that piece of wood. That goes there. This one goes here. And then I should be able to just pick it up. So let me move the camera so you can see. So I've got the thing here. I think it'll work. I had to take this clip off. I just could not get the brake pad to fit in there. So the brake pad just sits, so there's a groove for it. And without that clip on, it just goes right in its spot, no problem at all. And there's not much room for it to move, so I think that clip isn't necessary. So the inner pad's already in there, it just sits right there. So this goes on here. And you've got to have that piston all the way down, but it's in. No, guess it isn't. There it goes. Now it's in. So I've just got to slide this in with the spring, but before I do that, I'm gonna have to lift this up out of the way a little bit to fit it in there and make sure this is greased. So I'm gonna put some grease in here. Don't need a ton of grease because I don't want it to go all over everything. Something about like that. And then the spring goes on. And I'm just gonna rub some of this grease up on top of the spring. Got a terrible camera angle here. There, so I got it in, started. So now I should just push it mostly in, which I'm doing, and then I'm just gonna tap it the rest of the way. By the way, this is my grandfather's hammer. Then the screw that goes in, it's got a knurled thing, but also it's got a hex head in it. And the manual I have, you know, the Workhorse manual says not to use it more than 4 times. So whatever that's worth. This is only the 2nd time, so I think we're good. So get it started. And it says it's supposed to be 29 foot-pounds. So I'm going to put it in at 29 foot-pounds. Oh, it broke off. So I broke the bolt off. So I'm going to try to use a screw extractor, which, you know, those don't always work. I've got a drill bit that matches the screw extractor. So let's see if we can do it. I'm hoping that's just a crappy bit that came with it. I'm going to go get a different bit from a better set. So I got hopefully a higher quality bit. There's only one thing worse than snapping a bolt off, and that's snapping the drill bit off when you're trying to extract the bolt. So let's see if this one works. Okay, that's all the way through that bolt. So let's just hope that the extractor works. So I used a 5/32 drill. It was a 5/16 bolt. So here's the screw extractor. And I did have thread locker in there, but I'm hoping that the heat of the drilling, or maybe just that it's fresh, will soften it up. Okay. That's all the torque this screwdriver's got. So when I was pushing on the drill, I could push it to the point where it wouldn't turn anymore, but it wasn't coming loose either. So that means I think if I can get this so I can push it hard enough while I'm turning it, might be able to get it out. So I'm putting on a tap wrench as tight as I can, and then I'm going to try to apply a bunch of pressure to it inward as I'm turning it in the hopes I'll get it started. Oh, I think it's coming. It's coming. Ho, ho, ho. There we go. One screw extraction. Now I know why it broke. There's a shoulder here, and I didn't have this tapped on enough, so I was hitting the shape of the bolt. There's a shoulder on it that fits in this outer hole that you can't see, so I can fix that. And I have spare bolts, so we're back in the game. So there's what it looks like. There's the broken bolt, and it's stuck on the screw extractor. You can see I didn't go in straight with the drill. It's kind of hard to tell my angle in those cramped quarters, but once I put enough pressure inward, it just came out. Quite a bit of effort, but it came out. That's all that matters. So I got the new bolt, and as you can see, it's got a shoulder on it, and the shoulder has to fit into a hole that's here that you can't see from that angle, and I somehow missed the hole, so I've got to figure out why. And I think I just needed to have tapped this in just a little bit further, so I'm going to do that now. But now I see why they say you can only use these 4 times. I think that's going to work. But for some reason the threads aren't very good in there either. So I did some measurements with my caliper here, and the shoulder on this bolt that has to fit into that hole is 11.7 millimeters in diameter, and the hole is 13.34 millimeters, so it should set in that hole easily. There's a 1.5 millimeter all the way around clearance, so it'd be 0.75 all the way around, but still that's quite a bit. And then I checked the depth. And so the depth of the hole in there is 3.85 millimeters. So the hole that this shoulder drops into is only 3.85 millimeters deep, whereas the shoulder on this bolt is 4.52. So that means the bolt head here, this head, should sit proud of the hole by about 0.67 millimeters. So I've got a feeler gauge set at 0.65 millimeters, so I'm going to go in there and check all that out. The other thing I discovered is that this hole, I looked on the other side, and this hole is a dead end hole. It doesn't go anywhere, so I'm going to squirt some brake cleaner in there. Just clean it out a little bit more. Boy, I got like a paper cut on my thumb, and that brake cleaner really stinks. Didn't get much dirt out, a little bit. And the hole is quite deep. I mean, the hole goes down almost 1.5 inches, I would say, so I don't really understand the problem, but let's go ahead and just hand tighten this in again. But there's no way the shoulder's hitting on the edge of the thing, and I don't know why it won't screw in so well. That just seems so weird, because I've run the threader in there, everything. But I'm just going to get it down until it's snug. So it's snug now. Not tight, but snug. And I just want to see how much space I have there. Oh, there's way more. There's way more space than 0.67. See, the thickest feeler gauge I have is 0.9 millimeters. So it's like 1.5 millimeters. So there's something really odd going on. And if the threads were damaged, I wouldn't be able to get this threader in. But I can. Try it again. But it certainly gets tight right there. But I can pass that. There's where it gets tight. So the threads to that are way in that hole. So that should work. I think I'm going to get a regular tap. But I'm also going to try to clean out the opening. I don't think I've done that with it. Maybe there's some grit in there. Let's see if that did anything. Kind of doubting it. I did get this screwed in a little further with mild pressure with the ratchet. And I got it down to 0.9 millimeters. Let's see what it does now. Right here it starts getting tight. And I've got my biggest feeler gauge, which is 0.9. And that's a tight fit, but it goes in. But still, that's better than it was. And that just may be the way it is. It may just be I'm off with some of my measurements. But what I'm going to do is run a regular tap in there just to make sure maybe that thread cleaner thing isn't doing what it needs to do. So I've got a 5/16 18 thread per inch. And of course, got to be super careful when you do this. Going in the easiest, but it's going in. So it bottomed out till all the threads were pretty much flush quite a ways. So I'll take this out. So those threads are good for a good 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. So now I'll try putting this back in again. See if we improved anything. It should just go in by hand all the way in, and it just doesn't. There. Almost went all the way in. So let me check the depth there. The shoulder's not catching on the hole. I mean, it's definitely in the hole. Okay, this is the biggest 1.9. It just goes in there, but it's good, I think. I think I'm going to go ahead and put it in and torque it down. The shoulder's definitely in the hole. There's no doubt about that. I rechecked the manual, and it was supposed to be 24 foot-pounds, not 29. But let's see what happens here. Yeah, it's tightening up really quick. So whatever was going on before, I fixed. Okay, that's 25 foot-pounds. That's good. So this is a caliper, and I just wanted to show you a way that some cars use to connect hoses into hydraulic systems like that. And they use this thing, it's called a Banjo bolt. And if you look at it, it looks like a bolt from one end. But if you look at the other end, you can see there's a hole that goes right down the middle. And that hole has a channel that goes all the way through, and it exits this hole on the side. So fluid can go from here from the brake caliper and then go into that fuel hydraulic line. So the way it works is there's a copper washer here, and then here's a hose fitting, and it's got a hole in it, but it's not a tight fit, it's just a fit. So the seal happens between the copper washer and the face of this Banjo. And then on the other side, there's another copper washer, and then there's a nut. Well, it's not a nut, it screws into the caliper. So it would look like this. And then you just simply have to torque this nut down to whatever the manufacturer specifies. And what that does is seals the brake line to the hydraulic device with no leaking, because those copper washers work really well to prevent any oil from coming out. So that's set, finally. Okay, so I've got the copper washer on the bottom and the top of the fitting. Now I just have to screw it in. And it's supposed to be 14 foot-pounds, but yeah, there's no way I'm going to get my torque wrench in there. So I'm just going to wing it, 7/16. So I'm going to go get a 7/16 box end wrench. As you probably know, 14 foot-pounds isn't a whole lot. And I've done this in the past on my old British cars, and I just did it snug like this. I think that's about right. And if I had a leak when I was bleeding them, I would just tighten it up a little bit more. So I think we're done. So we've got a full installation here. So here's the whole right hub. We got the hub on, got the caliper on, we've got the hose connected. Bleeder's easily accessible. That's going to be nice. And I won't bleed this until I get the other side on, and I've also got to get the master cylinder in. Well, I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching. If you found this enjoyable, please like and subscribe. Bye.